All right, so let's jump in. Last week, I said something. A part of what I said was that the length and the strength of your why is being tested right now. And I followed it with a question. Do you intend to pass that test? And the big why is something that obviously, if you're a fan of the the MREA book, like I am, the big why is the first of the foundational ways that MREAs think. And yet I have found it to be a consistent source of confusion for people. I think it's something that also people hide behind because they can say things like, well, I don't know my why, which lets me off the hook for today. And so what I've come to know is that there isn't just one path to the why. I've figured out that at least in coaching people and working through it myself, at least 6 different methods that people can use in order to generate their own why. Now, I don't think that they are always things that are uncovered. Sometimes I think you have to build them. And for those of you that might be waiting around for the piano of purpose to fall on you and all the stars to align, that doesn't typically happen. So if you're not clear, then maybe it's time to construct one. And today I want to walk you through the 6 methods that we've developed to help people with this. And to start off so that you can follow along, I'm going to pop this link into the chat box here. Give me just one second. I thought I had it. Here we go. There you go. So open that up if you want to follow along. I'll also share my screen here so that each and every one of you can see what I'm working through. And so what we're looking to do, obviously, is to create our why. But the thing that I really want you to understand is that sometimes we get too caught up in what the why is and not what it does. And if you look up here, the purpose of understanding your big why is to mobilize your energy and focus. It's to help you show up every day and do your best work. And so we get caught up sometimes in what this thing is, and we don't focus enough on what it does. The purpose of your why is to mobilize energy and focus for you to show up each and every day at your best, being your best. Now, method number 1 are these 3 questions. Question 1, who in the world do you want to help most? Who in the world do you want to help most? Question 2, what problem do you want to help them solve? And then lastly, what do you feel when you help those people solve that problem? Now, here's the thing, is that it is okay to just focus initially on your family, right? Because if you think of your life as if you were hiking a mountain, every 1,000 feet that you ascend, the view changes. So if you're looking at it and going, well, it's not really a big why, that's cool. Just focus on nailing whatever you wrote down here. After you've realized that, then you'll be higher up on the mountain of life, and the view will change and you will have another perspective. The second one, and this is one that works really, really well, is reverse engineering. So reverse engineering, oftentimes asking people, what do you want out of life, is too big of a question. It just kind of causes their mind to short circuit. So what we do is we just ask them to share all the things that they don't want. So tell me all the things that you don't want. And people don't typically struggle with this. Like, they're able to just boom, boom, boom. And the reason for this, and this is an important lesson in life, is that pain is a magnet to attention. Pain is a magnet to attention. So the reason that this works so well is because wherever you are in pain, it typically gets your attention. And so what we do is, once we have the things that you don't want, we just ask a question, which is, what is the opposite of that? So what is the opposite of, I don't want to struggle financially? Cool. So let's reverse engineer that into a very specific target so that we know what it is that you're ultimately after. So what I find with people is usually anywhere between 6 to 10 don't wants and then reverse engineering them into do wants. And then you kind of sit back and ask the question, what's the pattern here? What's the pattern here? But reverse engineering is one that works really, really well. I like this one too. Method number 3. What pisses you off? What pisses you off? Anger is a symptom of passion. And if we're clear on what gets you fired up, the thing about like that triggering of anger, whatever is triggering you, there's something inside of you that wants to engage with that or wants to resist that. And so what is that? Why is it that it even pisses you off? For some of you, like I have a client who grew up as an orphan, and it pisses him off to see kids not have what they need. And that's a big part of what it is that he has constructed as his why. He sits on multiple boards that oversee funding for orphanages and kids who are in the foster care system. The next one, and this is one for those of you who really like to teach, but the inner circle. So if you think about the people who matter most to you, whether those are your professional relationships or your personal relationships, what are their whys? What are the things that are important to them? And you could discover it by just having them fill out certain sections of this, maybe all of them. And then what is it about you helping them? What if you help them focus on getting what it is that they want? And so what you're doing here is that your why becomes helping other people create their whys. I think that this is one that is completely underestimated, because I think about a conversation I had with my father-in-law like 3 years ago, and he was telling me, you know, how he's never been to Arrowhead Stadium and he's never done this and he's never done that. And so I'm sitting there mentally like taking notes of all of these things, because this is the stuff that I'm more than willing to pay for, the experiences. And we're going to take him to Arrowhead on November 20th against the Eagles. And if Taylor Swift would get out of the way, maybe the ticket prices would come down enough that we could actually go. But what are the whys of the people who are most important to you? And what's the hand that you can play in helping them realize it? Because we will do far more for other people than we ever will for ourselves. And I believe that we as a culture have swung way too much into this me, my self-care. I've got to take care of myself. I think we're way too hard to the right on that. And it's created this whole like me culture. I think most things are going to find that they're best in the balance. And I think that it is okay to spend a little bit of time really focusing on helping other people get theirs. The bucket list, this one's really, really fun. These are all the things, the places you want to visit, things you want to have, experiences you want to create before you kick the bucket. Now, you probably won't be able to use this page here to fill this out. What I tell people is on the bucket list, get no less than 50. So number 1 to 50, and go through and fill it out. But here's the thing, there's 2 pieces of this if you do the bucket list. Number 1, look for patterns. So like when you look at the 50 things you wrote down, what are the patterns of this? And then the other thing is that the 80-20 principle is always at play. The 80-20 law is always enforced. So when you're looking at your 50, there are 10 of those that matter most. And then of the 10, there's going to be roughly 2 that matter most. And so you can get start a plan to get about the business of creating whatever it is that you're after off of your bucket list, just by creating the list and then going almost extreme Pareto on it. What are the 10? What are the 5? What are the 2? What is the 1? So the bucket list. And then this last one, and this is the one that I would really encourage you all to think about just over the next quarter. The 4th quarter has now started, but time limited. So sometimes I think there's so much pressure on getting our why right because we think it has to be our why forever, instead of saying, what's going to be my why for the next 90 days? So just from now until I wake up on January 2nd, which is 90 days from today, hopefully most of your hangovers will have been cured by then. But what are your whys from now until then? What is it that you want this season of your life to be all about? What is it that's most important to you? So at any given time, you can always chunk the why down and just put a time limit on it. And typically it's going to fit inside of whatever chunks of time you are currently thinking in. And that's a really great question, by the way, as I know many of you are now stepping into business planning. And when you're working with the people inside your organizations to help them with goals, one of the best questions you can ask is, at this season in your life, what are the chunks of time you are thinking in? In this season of your life, what are the chunks of time you are thinking in? The thing that's interesting is that the older I get, the bigger chunks of time I think in. And I think part of that is just experience and realizing how long it actually takes to achieve certain things. But the other thing is that as my kids get older, my family gets like, I can see we're halfway now with Leah, right? She's 9, which is weird to think that, in 9 more years, she's gone or out of the house. So whatever season you're in, you're probably thinking in chunks of time, and you can use that to time limit your why so that you can vacuum out a lot of the pressure that this is something that you have to get right or it can't adjust, because I find that can often happen with people. So as I mentioned, the length and strength of your why is being tested right now. That the fourth quarter of this year is when we are going to separate the real tours from the fake tours. There is more than enough business for each and every one of you to hit your goals. There are more than enough people out there that need your help. And yet, is your why big enough to go engage with the activities, the schedule, the habits that are necessary for you to reach it? And I didn't want that question from last week to be one that just kind of went over our heads, because I wanted to be very tactical and help you see that there are at least 6 methods to creating your why. And if you heard one today that you go, that's the one for me, print the sheet and fill it out. If you're like me and you're like, I want to do all 6, cool, do that. But if you do all 6, remember the question that I continuously asked you as I was sharing this with you. What are the patterns? What are the patterns? And if you can find 2 to 3 patterns inside of how you filled that out, by God, I think you found your why. Now, the last thing I want to share with you is that if you fill this out, you're going to get a really good idea of what it is. And yet, if you fill this out and you still come to me and say, I still don't know what my why is, I'm going to call bullshit. And here's what is probably going on, is that you filled that out and the why that you are called to is so big that it feels as if you will never grow into the person that will realize that why. You're looking at how far that delta really is, and it scares the shit out of you, and it should. And yet, oftentimes, we look at the distance between where we are and where we would have to grow to, and because it scares us, we hide. And we hide behind, I don't know what it is. Yes, you do. You're just afraid that you can't grow into the person necessary to realize it. And I'm here to tell you that you can. I don't believe that dreams are put in our heads and our hearts that we're not meant to achieve. That if you're consistently thinking about it, if it's something that keeps you up, that you think about it a lot, you are meant to have it. And if you struggle with that, 2 books that I'd recommend. Number 1, Think and Grow Rich. Classic. Number 2, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And that book is, both of those books actually, they've been rewritten a few times. So it's kind of like the Bible. If you're going to read the Bible, don't get the King James version because it feels like Shakespeare's reading that shit to you and it's really hard. Get the most revised version of both of those books. And those are the books that will help you tap into the power that is available to you to create what it is that you're ultimately wanting to hike that curve to become the person to realize what it is that you're meant to do here. So I trust this is helpful. If there's a part of it that doesn't make sense, if there's something that you need our help with, feel free to email us, jordan@myfreelife.com or laura@myfreelife.com. Looking forward to seeing many of you tomorrow, next week on Monday Morning Mojo, and October 12th for the fourth quarter takedown. Thank you all for being here. Let's make it a great week. Bye-bye.